Great. Claire, over to you.
Cool. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for coming and watching the film. I was really impressed by it. It's a different type of film to the ones that we've seen featuring Extinction Rebellion so far. There's not very many people, I think, who are focusing on properly on climate grief. So I'm just going to say a few things. I guess one of the things that I think is really important at the moment is to be tuned into what's been lost already and what's being destroyed as we speak. And that's why we've had this message from XR this time around saying act now because it's too late, rather than act now before it's too late. And I guess in terms of provoking a kind of different conversation, we wanted to make sure that people understood why that's helpful. So, you know, too late for what is one of the things that we've been asking. And I think, you know, too late to wait a bit longer, too late to not talk about the fundamental problems with our economic model, with our political economy, too late for incrementalism and reformism. You know, we really, really need to grab hold of this situation collectively. And at the moment, it feels very clear to me anyway that all the experts agree. It's already too late to stop this. We've entered into a period of instability. And the reason that we need to act very, very swiftly is to try and slow it down, to try and stop what can be stopped. Also to try and like keep all of our best values intact as we do so, in terms of, you know, we are deeply rooted in compassion and love and care and cherishing people's freedom. And so it's not a call for surrender, but it's a statement that we know that we've already crossed a line, and you know, living with truth and in a deep state of kind of love for life is still possible. So we know that mass participation movements can make a real big difference. I think we can see that from the response at the moment that's coming at XR from left, right and centre, that, you know, they know that we have impact. And as the UK, we also know that our country has a huge responsibility, not just historically, but also because, you know, the City of London is still responsible for such a huge amount of the financing of destructive and carbon intensive projects. It was found some time ago, as I'm sure you know, to be one of the most corrupt place on earth, and a massive contributor to climate impacts. Some people have said recently that if the City of London was a country, it would have a carbon footprint number 9 on the list internationally of nations. So when people say it's not about the UK, that's not really true. And I think that we have a responsibility here to be effective, because, you know, once very, very impactful nations start to move seriously, then we can go through the kind of apathy and the sense of futility that I think has made international cooperation seem so difficult for people. You can't get a good deal on the table internationally unless it's fair. And we've damaged things so much that I think also what this film helps us to think about a little bit is that empathy and compassion and knowing our interdependence with one another all over the world as a sort of human family, I think has kind of become like survival skills, basically. This rebellion that we're going to do on starting next week and running into the week after, and hopefully maybe longer if that's possible or needed, is going to be focused, as you may know, on firstly coming together in crisis talks. So we'll be meeting on Monday at 10 o'clock on Trafalgar Square. If you're not already part of the rebellion, then you can find out all the information on social media or on our website. If you go to, I'll put a link in the chat for the page that's got all the details on it. So people will meet at 10 o'clock in the morning and then go to various sites for occupations, and inviting everyone to come to the table. And it's, you know, an action design in the spirit of citizens' assemblies and saying, you know, we need to speak to one another. We need to talk about what the situation really is. We want to hear from everybody about how it's affecting them now, how they think it's going to affect their families, their communities in the future. So bring chairs, bring tables, come and sit down. And we've put in our sort of copy, you know, we'll make coming together in an emergency a revolutionary act. So that's the first week is going to be largely focused on that, and there will be some disruption, but not only disruption. And then in the second week we're moving into the City of London to focus more there, certainly to promote the new immediate demand that Extinction Rebellion has, which I happen to think is like the least radical thing that we've ever done, which is just to say stop financing new fossil fuel projects. And in, you know, that's in something that we're saying in concert with the International Energy Agency, well-known radical institution, and loads of other organizations who are very clear that the infrastructure that already exists takes us likely to 2 degrees anyway. And so we certainly shouldn't be pouring loads of cash into new ones. So it seems like a no-brainer. It's very obvious. And yeah, hopefully that's a good framing for the second week that people have be out on the streets in the city. But you can sign up to the Telegram chats and find out more on social media if you're not already involved. And there'll be loads of hubs out in various places in central London where you'll find out there's talks and trainings and lots of easy, hopefully, ways to get involved. Just show up on the streets, and if you don't already have a plan, and there'll be people to meet you and help you find connection, to help you find ways to get involved. And I'll leave it there and pass on to Roger.
Yeah, hi, thanks. It's really nice to see everyone. Thank you very much. And I thought we were going to be talking about something deep and meaningful about the film, Claire. So I've done something deep and meaningful about the film. So there we are. It's an eclectic co-founder sort of plurality here. But anyway, so yeah, I thought the film was great, and paradoxically, I think not many people are going to want to watch it, and that's good because it's not the numbers, it's about the intensity of the communication of a transcendental truth or something like that. What I'm trying to say, before I get going, what I want to say is a little bit in terms of talking about. I want to talk about the relationship between this film and saving the world and mobilization and what have you, and then at the end talk about some practicalities. But it's somewhat outside my comfort zone to be talking about this stuff. So I just want to preface what I say by it could all be nonsense. So if it is, apologies. But here it goes. Like for me, like the film's all about death. I mean, that's pretty clear to me. And for me, ever since I got involved in the climate sort of situation, it's been self-evident to me that what we're actually talking about is death, and it's also self-evident to me that death is not death is not a big deal. It's like part of life, and I have quite a different perspective personally to a lot of people, and I think part of it is due to being an organic farmer for 20 years. And if you're a farmer, you're involved in life and death all the time. You basically create life, and you create life by creating death, and death creates life. And it's a fundamentally humiliating but ultimately uplifting experience to be that close to nature, because you realize how utterly irrelevant you are in the grand scheme of things. You know, you're just this blip. And if you can get through that humiliation, then it actually makes you quite powerful, which is all this sort of stuff is paradoxical. And I think the reason why I think the film's important in a way is, I think, I can't quite prove this, but I think our inability in our culture to deal with death is absolutely central to our inability to mobilize and do the right thing. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's something about the ubiquity of fear And fear, as we all know, is basically the main reason why we're fucked, right? We're not fucked because of the climate. We're fucked because we're fearful. And, you know, that's 101 political sociology, right? The regime falls when fear slips away. And I don't think there's a clear separation between the fear of death and the fear of the regime and the fear of personal status loss. It's all the same sort of thing. And so for me, there's something in terms of standing up and doing the right thing and putting yourself in harm's way and dealing with all those crises with your family and your career and your ego and all that sort of stuff. It's not really, for me, the climate crisis is, the notion that a climate crisis is something political, I think is slightly laughable, to be honest with you. I think even the notion that climate crisis is a moral issue isn't really getting to the heart of the problem. I think the heart of the problem is our spiritual immaturity. And what I mean by that is I don't mean spiritual in a, necessarily a religious sense. I mean more in a sense of self-knowledge, a sense of who you are, what you are, where you're going, what it is to live, what it is to die, what it is to love, all this sort of stuff. We're all messed up on it because no one's able to talk about it, and we're not able to investigate what it is to become what I would call like spiritually congruent with ourselves. And really, for me, that's the main purpose of life, right? Whether we succeed or not on the climate crisis that's just the stage on which fate has put us. What our real sort of role in life is to play this game of self-mastery, of overcoming our ego and all these other words people use. And I think like there's two elements which you sort of saw in the film, which is the two things that we have to do is overcome our cultish addiction to rationality, to the part of our brain that goes, I can work this out, without other people, without any sense of the wholeness of which I'm a part. I'm just this atomized individual alone in my bedsit trying to work out whether I should go and get arrested or not. That's like it's a perversion and a stupidity that our culture tells us, and I've got no time for it. I think it's rubbish, right? I know as a social scientist, like people don't make rational decisions. We're a part of a big flow of consciousness, influenced by loads of things we don't understand and loads of things we sort of half understand. But the other thing is like our attachment to the self, which you could talk about for hours, but I'm sure lots of people know what I mean, that you have this ridiculous notion, there's this individual called Roger Hallam or individual called Clare Farrell, but it's rubbish. It's like I wake up in the morning with weird ideas. Where did they come from? Well, it certainly didn't come from me because I didn't create them. There's all this nonsense about an atomized self. And again, that creates isolation and depression and lack of connection. And the reason why this is important is because it endlessly prevents us from stepping into the courage of resistance. And this is what we're being asked to do, right? By the cosmos, by our inner self, whatever fancy word you want to come up with. But that's what we're being called to do. And what I think, there's two sort of transitionary elements here which enable mass resistance to happen. And one of them is this idea of community, right? It's a cliche, isn't it? But it's true that we're all separated. And when we enter into community with each other, we suddenly find this massive strength. I've just been talking this week with these people that are joining affinity groups to do Insulate Britain. And it's like they suddenly achieve some solidity of courage when they sit down with 15 other people that are going to do something with them. And this, again, is a big taboo. It's like individuals make their decisions, it's rubbish. What we have to do is enter into community, and the courage to enter into community with each other. And then suddenly you get this explosion of courage that we never thought we had. And the other sort of element is entering into service to the other. And this is right ridiculously juxtaposed to this notion of self-interest, which is pure bollocks. right? The only way that we ever fulfill any sense of self-interest is in service to the other, right? To our families, to our communities, to our beliefs, to our nation, whatever it is. And it's horrendous how this culture continually sells us this stupid idea that, you know, doing something difficult is a cost. No, it's not. Doing something difficult is a mechanism through which we self-fulfill ourselves and prepare ourselves for death. That's what it's about. And for me, like, this is the agenda, right? I mean, and maybe other people can, you know, more coherent than me, can talk about it, but this is the agenda for going forward in Extinction Rebellion. And I really want to thank Jennifer for producing a film which starts that realization that we have to root ourselves in some spiritual solidity. Otherwise, you just have this whole burnout situation that, you know, is a bit of a fetish in activist culture. We don't need to burn out, you know. I'm nowhere near burning out. I do 70 hours a week, have done for 2 years. It's because I have a different worldview, you know, of how the world is and who I am and what I try to do, you know, which isn't to say I might crumble into a pile tomorrow. Who knows, right? Never say never. But it doesn't seem to have happened yet. Let's put it like that. And I just want to finish by saying that this isn't some, you know, waffly spiritual nonsense, right? This is hard empirical social science. You know, people, when they step up into congruence with their inner self, they're massively happier and they're massively more creative and connected. And that's the situation, right? Don't let this society sell you the myth that you have to be miserable about climate, right? You can be, you know, you can engage in the ecstasy of what life is. And you do that through community and through service. And just to, you know, in case you think I'm talking bollocks, at the April Rebellion of 2019, I've said this in some of my talks, but like some people, you know, I was telling everyone to go out in the streets and get arrested and everything. And some people came up to me and said things like, "Oh, Roger, I got arrested 3 times." And I was thinking, oh my God, you know, with my sort of rational sort of self-interest hat on, I was thinking, they're going to give me a hard time, you know, lost their jobs and they're going to sue me or something. And then instead of saying that, they said, "Roger, that was the best 2 weeks of my life." And I was going, fuck, you know, like that shatters modern civilization, doesn't it? You know, this is what it's about, right? It's about entering into the ecstasy of resistance and community. And I think we're going to do it, and we've got to get on with it. And we're going to see a massive explosion of resistance in the next year. Because I tell you what, like, if there's anything you can say about human beings, they don't roll over to die, right? It's not in our nature. So, you know, fireworks are coming down the road. And I just want to finish by saying, yeah, there are these two things that we're sort of officially plugging, as Claire says, as I suppose everyone knows about the rebellion, but starting on Monday. And there's also 150 people now who are going to be engaged in high-level civil disobedience to ask the government to make a start on insulating the houses in Britain. It might sound a bit mundane, but it's going to be a dramatic shaboodle, and I can talk a bit about that in the breakout groups, or I think hopefully there'll be a link to it. And I just want to finish by saying that I think both actions are or should be a line in the sand for people, and I think that's a sort of sensibility that I've sensed over the last 10 weeks. I've spoken to about 1,000 people in groups over the last 10 weeks. I've done about 5 or 6 public meetings a week, and incidentally, like 150 people signed up for insulation, but there's 800 people that are maybes, right? So you know, this is it. Like there's 1,000 people out there on the verge of being prepared to go to prison in order to get something semi-sane to happen. So we're on the cusp, and yeah, arts. I'm not going to say anything else. I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, and good luck.